What just happened to America's finances? In July alone, the US government ran a staggering $291 billion deficit. That's nearly 20% higher than last year's number for the same month. Headlines call it a red alert for Washington, and critics are pointing the finger straight at President Trump's economic strategy. Some even claim the Treasury is collapsing under its own weight. But is it really that bad? And why does this matter for you? Let's break it down. The latest figures from the US Treasury paint a stark picture of the nation's finances. In its monthly report, the department confirmed a staggering number. For July 2025 alone, the federal government ran a budget deficit of $291 billion. This single figure has sent ripples through Washington, raising urgent questions about the country's fiscal trajectory. To put that into perspective, it means the government spent $291 billion, more than it collected, in just 31 days. The spending side of the ledger includes everything from Social Security and Medicare to military salaries and new infrastructure projects. On the revenue side are the taxes and tariffs that fund the government. The widening gap between income and outlays is what economists are watching so closely. What's particularly alarming is the rate of acceleration. Just 1 year ago, in July 2024, the deficit was $245 billion. The leap to $291 billion represents a nearly 19% increase in just 12 months. This isn't a small fluctuation. It's a significant trend suggesting the gap between federal spending and income is widening at an unsustainable pace. Analysts warn this indicates recent policy changes have failed to control spending. Ironically, this surge in the deficit comes as certain revenue streams are performing well. The administration's aggressive trade policies have led to a noticeable increase in customs duties collected at our ports. On paper, this should help close the fiscal gap. However, the data shows this extra income is being completely overwhelmed by a tidal wave of government outlays. Despite the boost from trade, overall spending commitments are expanding far more rapidly, rendering the increased tariff revenue almost insignificant against the national budget. So where is all this money going? Treasury data shows Social Security payments are up as more Americans retire. Interest on the national debt has skyrocketed with higher rates eating billions each month. Defense and domestic programs are costing more than projected. The result? Even with tariffs bringing in billions, it's like trying to plug a sinking ship with a band-aid. This is where the story explodes from an economic headline into a political firestorm. On one side, you have staunch supporters of President Trump, who see this as a necessary battle in a larger economic war. They champion the administration's America First doctrine, arguing that for decades other nations have taken advantage of the US. The tariffs, in their view, are the long overdue bill, a tool to force countries like China to the negotiating table and protect vital American industries like steel and auto manufacturing. The core belief is that any short-term economic pain is a small price to pay for long-term national strength. Critics, a diverse group of economists and opposition politicians, paint a starkly different picture. They point to this record-breaking July deficit as Exhibit A, that the tariff strategy is failing. The revenue generated, they argue, is a drop in the ocean compared to massive government spending and the 2017 tax cuts. More alarmingly, they warn the economic blowback is just beginning. For the average American, this isn't an abstract number. It could translate into the very real pain of inflation, where your dollar buys less at the grocery store, or future battles over higher taxes or painful cuts to essential services like Medicare and Social Security. And that pressure cooker environment gives birth to a powerful narrative. Trump in panic. While we don't have cameras inside the Oval Office, sources within the Beltway describe a sense of shock. This isn't just another bad headline. It's a direct assault on the president's image as a master deal-maker who alone could fix the economy. The deficit figure undermines a core pillar of his policy, creating a significant political vulnerability. There's no doubt this number sent a seismic shock through Washington, triggering frantic phone calls, emergency meetings, and a scramble to control the public message. In the halls of Congress, the deficit number becomes a political weapon. Lawmakers from both sides are sharpening their knives. Democrats immediately point the finger at what they call the fiscally irresponsible 2017 tax cuts and the chaotic, self-inflicted wounds of the trade war. Republicans, in turn, deflect, blaming decades of unchecked spending on social programs. It's a familiar political theatre, but the stakes are getting higher. This single month's deficit is another layer on top of a multi-trillion-dollar national debt, a ticking time bomb that both parties have helped build for years. America's allies and rivals are watching too. For China and the EU, the message is clear. US tariffs may bring in short-term revenue, but the deficit shows weakness. Credit agencies and investors are also taking note. A ballooning deficit raises the risk of higher borrowing costs, weaker bonds, and even long-term doubt in the US dollar's dominance. Why should you care? Because deficits aren't just numbers on a page. They can affect mortgage and loan rates as interest climbs, prices on imported goods if tariffs continue, retirement savings if market confidence in US bonds shakes. In short, America's red ink eventually hits your wallet. So, did the US Treasury collapse? Not in the way a building does, but the financial shockwaves were just as real. A staggering $291 billion deficit in a single month isn't just a headline. It's a historic red flag, forcing a national reckoning with uncomfortable questions that go far beyond Washington. Was this the inevitable bill for President Trump's economic strategy? A high-stakes gamble of massive tax cuts and trade wars? Proponents argued it was necessary fuel for growth. Critics, however, point to this deficit as proof of a fiscal policy that slashed revenue without reining in spending. Or is this something far deeper, a structural crisis no single president has been able to solve? For decades, mandatory spending on programs like Social Security and Medicare has grown relentlessly. Compounding this is the spiraling cost of interest on the national debt itself. We're now borrowing money just to pay the interest on money we've already borrowed. The numbers paint a stark picture. America is living far beyond its means. And this isn't just a problem for politicians. When the government borrows this much, it can drive up interest rates for every American family on mortgages, car loans, and credit card debt. It risks devaluing the dollar, making everything you buy more expensive and eroding your savings. The panic might start in the Treasury, but if this trajectory continues, it could reach every American household, forcing painful choices between higher taxes, slashed services, and a diminished economic future. The path forward is uncertain, but understanding the stakes is the first step. If this deep dive gave you a clearer picture of the forces shaping our economy, hit that like button, share it, and subscribe for more essential analysis.